Alrighty, welcome back to Left 4 Dead Garage. Jumping onto another project that's should have already been in here months and months ago. We're gonna jump back on the world's longest LS swap. I'll take that back. I think I might own the world's longest LS swap. My dually out there. That's been since 2019. But nope, we got the old white El Camino back in the shop. So I wasn't going to video this. I was actually just going to video the motor going back in, and fingers crossed and things working out the way they should have worked the first time. But this may be interesting or handy to some if you're messing with LS stuff. I figured I would show my collection of homemade tools that I've come up with to work on these things, because either I was too cheap or just didn't have the cash to buy what I needed, so I made what I needed. Now, I will say, I do have access to a machine shop pretty much anytime I want, so I do have a slight advantage with that being in my pocket, but I'll show you what I've created. You got Joe's 5.3, it's 2002, 3 something, 5.3, came out of a Silverado. Well, I pulled the motor, I know it runs. It ran well, had good oil pressure, good vitals, all the stuff we're looking for. I've got everything cleaned up, got it vacuumed out, cleaned up as good as possible. The mileage I can't remember, honestly. 180, 190, I don't know. It'll be fine. So, as far as homemade tools, take a head bolt. Anybody can do this. Take a, you can see the crud on the bolt there. Take a real thin cutoff blade and go down through it and cut you a notch in it. You run it down in there. I use a ratchet. You can actually hear it. Cleaning out the crud. See all that? That's what that's for. Then take air, blow it out. Now this one was so nasty, I'll probably do it twice. Just run it back down in there. I should have you on the tripod. And it gets all the crud out. Blow it out again. And for the most part, you're clean. So that's homemade tool number one. I really suggest doing that, making sure there's no liquid, no oil, no brake cleaner, no whatever down in those blind holes, because A, it could give you a goofy torque reading, or B, it could actually break the block. So moving on here, I've only had to use this once, and it was I don't know if the truck's on the video or not. It's the truck in the burnout. In the intro to some of the videos, and it's probably a short 05 Silverado that I had. I did heads and cam and stuff on it, but I had to measure for push rods, and I did not have time to order a push rod length checker. But lo and behold, a factory LS push rod is a 70 thousandths wall, so it's a pretty healthy rascal. So it's enough wall to where I could tap it 1/4 28, and I used a bolt that I cut off, tapped both ends, and then down inside this end is actually a Bic, an ink pen spring. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's an ink pen spring in there to hold tension on it, so the adjustments got a little detent, so to speak. But it's adjustable, it's strong, and it was pretty much free. The next thing is this is a factory balancer bolt, and if you notice, the shoulder is smaller than the crank snout. That's so I can use this bolt to pull a balancer. And then I actually went in there and put a center in it, and then I like spot faced this or counterboard with a big flat area on the lathe, so that the puller had something to flat to bank up on, and then it had that ledge there to keep it from walking. And then that's turned down small enough so it will actually, well, here's a good example. There's a factory bolt, and it's turned down so the balancer will actually slip over that thing. Now, you could actually do that with a grinder and might not have to worry, but you know, you could probably get by without this. So because this one, it's got a little bit of a deal in there, it just doesn't have a center like this one. And my new puller actually works real well with that because it's got a different tip, and that tip sits right in there. So, but you can see the difference. So that's handy. And they say you're supposed to not reuse these anyway, so I had one laying around. Now this thing, on the other hand, this is my installer. So I threaded it, fit the crank, and then obviously your balancer will be on there. And this is all junk stuff from work. That's a bearing from a broken tailstock. And then that's just a spacer and obviously a washer, and the balancer will go right here. And you'll hold this with one wrench and hold this with another wrench, and you'll spin that and it'll push the balancer on there. Now they make a tool, of course they do, but I either didn't have time, didn't want to spend the money or something, or I was just feeling crafty, which sometimes I get that way, and made my own. Now this one is probably the most used. It gets loaned out pretty good bit because it's so handy. And I actually made all this out of crap laying around. Charlie modified it with clear tubing so you can actually see the oil. All I had was braided line here. It really needs a sight tube put in it. But this is my homemade pre-lube tank. It was an old air tank that I didn't use anymore. This Moroso remote filter was laying in a box. This old Fram PH8A was sitting over there on the shelf. This is all brass from here and there. There's a piece of Dash 8 from something. Harbor Freight regulator, some brass, a valve that I like to keep closed. And then you got a valve here too. And I put this bung in it, and that's how you fill it. So you just put 5 quarts of oil in it, and without the sight glass, like it really needs like a tube like this, one with a port here and a port here, and you can measure as the oil goes into the motor, regulate it down to 30 psi or 40 psi or whatever, and then I go in to the block right here. So, and I have another homemade tool. Oh, it's already, there's one here. This is a factory oil pressure switch that was leaking, and I knocked the guts out of, and I drilled and tapped for an 1/8 pipe. So that's all that is. See, it's the same thing as that guy right there. So you just plumb thread this guy into that port over there, put your air pressure to it right here, and turn it on, and it starts pumping oil. And I take the valve covers off, and I'll crank the motor over with the ratchet while it's pushing that oil in. And typically 90% of everything, all the valve train, all the upstairs stuff is oiling by the time it's you know, done. But what you want to do is, you don't want to run this thing dry and push air back through there, because then you're kind of defeating the purpose. But periodically I'll close the valve and I'll just check the dipstick, and when we're at the full level, call it done. So, and there's, you know, leaves a little bit of oil in the tank. Typically we put more than 5 quarts in it just to be on the safe side, but you got to stay on that dipstick without having a sight glass. So that's my homemade garbage. So comes in pretty handy. It could be better, but it works for me. I mean, somebody could see that on the side of the road and be like, what in the world is this, and not know. But it's pretty dang handy. So I'm gonna continue cleaning this thing up. I gotta run to O'Reilly's and get some paint, because I'm gonna paint this block. I'm gonna paint it orange. I figured Joe might get mad at me if I paint it orange, so I better not do that. And he's got red valve covers. Honestly, that's the only thing stopping me, is his red powder coated valve covers in an orange block. He might be like, what the crap are you thinking? But I do have some orange paint left. It's sitting right over there. Well, I got to get black paint for the water pump on Pinky, so we'll just do it black. All right, I'm gonna finish cleaning up, run to O'Reilly's, get some stuff, and we'll start putting this thing back together, and I guess I'll video that process too.
Competition Products, your source for hardcore engine parts for street, strip, and oval track. Our free catalog is packed with hundreds of product lines from the best-known manufacturers in the performance industry. Lowest prices guaranteed. Free shipping and handling on all orders over $149 in the continental U.S. Need expert advice? Our knowledgeable staff is just a phone call away. Competition Products, race parts sold by racers since 1970.
All right, I didn't video any of the putting the heads on or the cam or any of these, you know, the covers, front and rear, the pan. The other day we had a ton of rain, so I had the door shut, and I've had the AC running for 3 days. So I really just don't feel like opening the door and letting the bald air out. So I'm just gonna ride it out in here. And so with the rain noise and the AC running and all that mess, too much background noise, and I don't have awesome editing stuff to take out the background noise, so I gotta video selectively. So I figure I'd save the more fun stuff, like the pre-lube tank and my balancer installer, and then my plan is to set the motor in the car, and then that'll be the end of this video, and then jump back onto it as far as wiring and plumbing and intake manifold on, all that fun stuff. So I'm gonna stick you to the garage door, and we're gonna install this balancer, and then we're gonna put some oil in that tank and pump this baby up. So let's see what we can get done today. Alrighty, the balancer. I painted this thing. Probably got a little bit of overspray in the So let me get this out. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit of grease on this thing, the outside and probably the inside, so I don't burn the seal up, and well, it might assist going on there. So got this guy right here. Thread that all the way into the crank snout. Square that thing up. Alright, so I'll just walk this thing on just like this. Like I said, they make these things. I am sure of it. But I made this one, and it seems to work just fine. That's all she wrote. Pretty handy contraption. All right, now my oil tank, we need to pull this plug out right here inside the block. So right here in the block, you'll need to pull that plug. Sometimes they can be pretty snug. It's an 8mm hex. 5/16 would probably work if you had to, but so let's pull that guy out. Set it right there. I'll put this junk up. All right, we'll have to pull the valve covers back off too. You don't have to, but I like to. That way you can see everything if it's oiling upstairs. All right. Like I said, all this was the oil pressure sending unit. That right there that I drilled and tapped. Slightly snug that. All right, let me pull these valve covers off. You know, actually, due to time, I believe once we get this thing primed, probably just call it on this video. All right, let's get some air. Got my valve closed. Oh boy, I got an air leak. You're gonna love that. So we're set on 60 psi. Just to start it, I'm gonna go 40. Pressurize the tank. Kind of dirty, but you can see it. I got my valve closed out here. Gotta hurry, I only got like 40% battery for some reason. Alright, so we're pressurizing. 20 psi. We'll crack this open. Should see oil start flowing out of that line. There we go. Oh, we got a leak. Oh, it'll quit with pressure. So, oh, Charlie put a valve here. So, we got oil going. Now, let me get a socket and a ratchet. We'll crank this thing over periodically. Oh, I gotta get a balancer bolt. So there is one here somewhere. Alright. It says that you're not supposed to reuse these things, but we will today. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever bought one. Alright, I got the plugs out of it, so it's easy to start rolling it around here. You can see the line, there's no air bubbles happening. Sometimes I'll take a pressure gauge and put it in that back port where that factory gauge is, but But didn't on this one. I mean, we know we got oil. So start rolling it around and start looking for oil coming through the push rods. It takes a little while. So got one right here. So that one's already oiling. You can see it. What about this side? Anybody? Not yet. That one's oiling good. It's the only one so far. But you get the gist of it. I'm gonna continue doing this for a minute, and I'll get back to you. All right, this one was a little bit stubborn. Actually, well, I only put a gallon in it, and I was gonna try to only do a gallon. Ended up having to refill, so probably a little bit high. I'm gonna drain about a quart out of it, and I let it run as long as I felt like it probably needed to. I got 14 to 16 rockers. You can see this is a dry one. If you can hear that or not, that's the Silver 49. It's on the road now. That one's not. All these are. And same with this side. Everybody but this guy. But that's not a big deal. It'll start oiling, get some RPM to it. But I think I'm gonna wrap it up on this one for right now. We'll stick the valve covers on it. We'll clean up because my system has a little flaw in it. It leaks a little bit, so it does make a mess right there. So got to get that cleaned up, pick some tools up, get this bench cleaned back off, do a re-rack, and we'll get back to it. Thanks for watching Left 4 Dead Garage. We'll see you on the next one.